it's private. Okay. Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the Music City Drive-In, brought to you by the Drive-In Podcast Network. I am your host, Ricky Valero. On today's episode, Jacob and I are going to talk about this little movie that nobody knows about called The Batman. Jacob and I had the pleasure of seeing it while we're recording this last night. I was very excited. Obviously, we both were, but Jacob and I are going to break down our thoughts on the story / script, the acting, the technical aspect, and give an overall score. We are going to, this is going to be spoiler free. We're going to talk about certain things in the film, but also we're not going to, spoil anything that happened in the movie. We're not going to be variety. But with that being said, Jacob, how are you today, bud?
I'm good. Yeah. Busy getting all this stuff out, having to pick up Ricky's slack for some Netflix masterpiece that's about to come out. And so,
I'm never going to hear the end of this, am I? I'm never going to hear the end of this, am I?
No, I'm not going to say that. I'm not going to say that on the air, but I'll tell you after.
All right.
But anyways, I was very excited to see the Batman, which was surprising because I liked The Dark Knight. I won't talk about Rise or Revenge. I don't even know what it's called. The third of the Nolan trilogy. I've just never myself been a big Batman guy. I've actively disliked Batman for a long time. But I have been a big Robert Pattinson guy, and I have been a big Matt Reeves fan, Paul Dano, all those people. And so I was pretty excited and gave it some very, very high expectations going into it. And of course, we're going to talk about it.
So that's the perfect segue for me for the story and the script. I think one thing that we always forget, and I think that we have forgotten, is Batman is not a superhero, in my opinion. I don't feel like he's the traditional term of the word superhero. Whenever I think of superhero, you kind of think of like Superman. You think of like, Thor. They have some sort, or even Spider-Man. They have something about them that alters Batman's just rich, right? And Bruce Wayne's rich. That's at the end of the day, that's basically what it boils down to for me. And
that was the one thing about the Batman vs Superman that I was like, okay, I actually like this line, because that's what my whole thing about Batman is. Like, everyone's like, oh, Batman's the best superhero. Batman's the best superhero. And it's like, first off, he's not super.
Exactly.
He just has money.
Yes.
It's in the same vein that, like, I wouldn't call Iron Man like a superhero, even though he has a little bit more advantages than Batman in the abilities of like flight and all those other things. But in whatever Snyder, Justice Writers League, whatever, when he was like, oh, what's your superpower? And he said, I'm rich. I was like, okay, that's the first time I was like, yes, like he understands that he's not like that guy. He just has, he just has money.
Yeah, and I think that's where I feel like this is where Matt Reeves gets the Batman right. The script is incredible. He humanized Batman in a way that we haven't seen yet. And that's even Nolan's version of the Batman. I felt like it was a very more grounded approach. First off, I want to credit Matt Reeves for not letting us have to see Bruce Wayne's parents die again. That was the best part of just the opening scene of the movie. I figured even after the opening scene, which reels you in really fast, I was like, all right, they're going to do some sort of flashback. We're going to see Bruce Wayne's parents die for the 800th time. You know what I mean? But he didn't do that. So for me, the writing is incredible, right? And I feel like the writing was very good. Now, I'll talk about a little bit of what I didn't like and what's the one thing. So the writing of the Riddler is brilliant. And this is my version of how I feel about the writing is everything that had anything to do with the Riddler, and that's whether he was in the scene or not in the scene, is damn near perfect. Okay, and that's how I feel about that part of it. When the story veers off of the Riddler at any capacity, I feel like it loses its way a little bit. I felt like there was just a little too many open-ended things outside of what we were focusing on that really kind of took away from the main story. And it's not even like, for me, like I jokingly talk about the 3-hour runtime. Did I feel the 3-hour runtime? Yes. Was it a problem? Not necessarily. I don't think it really was. So combining for me, I really love the script and I love the screenplay. I love the story aspect of this film. What about you?
Yeah, no, I think I am a big fan of longer movies, but I probably like most people who just enjoy movies and enjoy longer movies. I'm not a big fan of when a longer movie like is long for the case of being long. I like if a movie is long and it uses all of that time to tell its story and it needs that time to tell its story, then I'm okay with it. And I felt like for the Batman, that was the case. Um, I do think with the story itself, I think people are like hoping and thinking this is going to be like a groundbreaking change. Like this is going to change the mold of comic book movies. Like comic book movies will never be the same after this. Like that's like for whatever people say about Joker, that's kind of like what Joker was a very different comic book movie. This is still very much a comic book movie in the sense that like it has to build the outside world as well as Batman's world. It has to build Falcone. It has to build the Penguin. It has to build the Riddler. It has to build Gordon. It has to build like all of these things have to be like put together and built up in like one atmospheric like place. And so there are times where like it does feel like it is getting a little cramped and it is getting a little big. But I think having it be that longer runtime allows it to, whenever it does start feeling cramped, it's able to thin itself out and like ease itself into these situations and these moments. And I think that actually really worked. I agree with you. I think everything with the Riddler was like almost perfect. I think the like kind of almost whodunit aspect of it was really cool. The like figuring out the riddles, like doing all that kind of stuff. It's one of those things where it's like you said, like a grounded Batman. Like this is a Batman before he like he has the tech and stuff like that, but he doesn't like know the tech. He's very much like a mid-20s Batman. Like
Yeah, because like he made mistakes, right? You know what I mean? Like even with figuring out the riddles, like he was wrong, right? I thought that was one cool. I don't know if you agree with me here, but I thought that was really cool that even when they're trying to figure out these riddles, he's not giving it any of the way, but he gets it wrong, like completely wrong, and like is short-sighted in trying to figure out who is what and where and how within the story, and that really was cool for me.
Yeah, he still makes his mistakes. He's still like he's not to the point where it's like, oh, everything is like precise. Like he does some things just like, by the seat of his pants, like he just goes for it. And I think that is one thing that like I really enjoyed. Like I was telling Ricky this, I was telling everyone else this. This is the first time that I feel like a Batman movie has kept Batman himself at the forefront of the movie. I think when you start the movie and when you end the movie, it is about him. It's not about, you've got scenes where, and we'll talk about that later. You've got scenes where the Riddler comes in and takes over a scene. And you've got scenes where like other characters come in and they take over a scene. But ultimately it always goes back to Batman. And I think that is one thing where like watching this really like reminded me of that. It felt like playing like the Arkham games when I was growing up, like the Arkham Knight, Arkham whatever. And so so I thought the story was very grounded, very much a Batman story, which is something that like I don't think we've ever seen from a Batman movie.
Yeah, see, that's one of the things I agree with you there as well. Is like even the scenes with the Riddler, it's still about the Batman. Like it's still about him because there's one scene in particular, and I think to me it's one of the best acted comic book scenes that we've seen, and I think it is going to see a lot of comparisons to the Joker, Heath Ledger Joker Batman scene in the prison when they were together, and it's going to draw some eerily similar aspects to that, and it's the first time we really see Paul Dano as the Riddler outside of the mask, and holy shit, like it is incredible. Because and I'm not going to say why or like how it transpires because it kind of gives some stuff away, but how he thinks things are going in his head versus reality. Again, I think that's just a testament to Reeves's writing. And I guess that could be a perfect segue for us to talk about the acting. Obviously, the first question across the board is going to be was how is Robert Pattinson, not just as Bruce Wayne, but also as Batman? And I said this to you after the movie's over, and I completely believe this. I wish this was the first Batman movie I would see in my life. Because growing up, you have this idea in your head. Like even when you have Michael Keaton, you had George Clooney, right? You had Christian Bale, you have Ben Affleck. You have this made up perception of what Batman and even Bruce Wayne should be. Now, the difference was, I think you had a much older and much more mature Batman in those movies, right? In this one, and I think you touched on it perfectly, is you have this middle-aged young kid still trying to figure out life post parents, post life, post everything, also trying to be a hero, but also like he's kind of like a recluse. You know what I mean? Like it's even mentioned that he doesn't come out. Like he just doesn't come out ever. Like he doesn't want to be around people. He even talks about early in the film, like he doesn't want to meet with the people with Wayne Enterprises. He wants nothing to do with any of that. He's just kind of focused and honed in on being the Batman, being that vigilante that saves the day. And Pattinson does a great job in the role of Batman. Bruce Wayne, I'm still not sure how I feel. I can't wait to revisit it again. But if it's that mid-20s Batman that we got, I think that overall he does a very good job in the role of both Batman and Bruce Wayne. What about you?
Yeah, no, I agree. Like this isn't the like billionaire playboy like philanthropist. And I do like that they had a moment, and it was in the trailer where, you know, a woman is asking him like your parents were like your parents like donated, they were a part of the community, why are you not doing that? And I do agree that he is very much a recluse, and it's a lot about Batman, which, and this is something that I was telling, you know, Josie, for people who don't know, I was telling Josie, I think it's really interesting that like for a lot of this movie, he isn't Batman. I don't know if Batman is even spoken throughout the whole movie. And so it's almost as if it's a coming of age story to like become the Batman, which I thought was a very interesting aspect of it. Because it is like,
you're right. I don't think he's never one time called Batman. Like he's just like,
yeah, they mentioned the bat, and like they mentioned that like he looks like a bat, but I don't know if like the words Batman are spoken. It's, you know, it's vengeance or it's vigilante. And I think it's really interesting how watching through the movie, he almost like becomes Batman. And I think that is something that is really interesting, because it's like you said, like the Bruce Wayne aspects kind of get pushed to the side. But what it fits within the story is that like this is his life. Like he's, you know, he's Batman first, Bruce Wayne second. There's days he goes, you know, days without sleep. He says in a voiceover, he's like, I've become a nocturnal animal. He like, this is his life. And so I think as that, it is probably, in my opinion, the best portrayal of the character of Batman. He understands like, this is what I have to do to get what's done. And I was telling this again to Ricky after the movie. This is the first time as a non-Batman fan, as a avid Batman hater almost, this was the first time I was like, I understand. I get what Batman is. I get what he's trying to say. I get what he's trying to do. I get Batman. And this is the first time I like Batman. And I think that when you get to the Batman aspect of it, I think this is Batman. Now, again, I can't say if this is Bruce Wayne. I can't say if, you know, whatever, if they do anything in the future, whatever. But when it gets down to the core root of the movie, this is Batman.
And see, I think about this for a second too, is 2012 was the last time we saw Christian Bale's Batman, right? we've seen a variation of a different type of Batman since then, right? You know what I mean? Even within Ben Affleck, and I don't remember. I think he's been in three movies as Batman, or
technically two. But
And
if you count Zack Snyder's Justice League, because it was
so,
Justice League and it was Batman vs Superman.
so over the last 10 years, we've seen a very different Batman than what some of other of us have grew up on within Christian Bale's Batman, right? Because that was more rooted and grounded. And then this one, like I said, I think this is like and you're right by saying this, it's a young, wet behind the ears Batman. He's like a struggling 25-year-old kid that doesn't know what to do with his life. And it's relatable, right? It's it's a relatable character in so many, and that's the thing. That's what makes Batman so good. Like, that's what in my head, that's why I love Batman. That's why I've always loved Batman. Like, I love the Batman character, but I've hated his portrayal over the years because he's not, and then I hate it. He's not a superhero. He's not a superhero. And when you put him into movies with guys like Superman and even Aquaman, like Aquaman's a superhero. The dude lives in the water, basically. You know what I mean? Like, he can go underwater like that. Batman is just rich, and that's it. And this to me is like it's crazy to me because walking out of the movie, I really liked the movie. I did, but I have issues, and I still have issues with this movie. But the more that I talked about it, I wrote my review today, almost 800 words, and I like it more and more. And I can't wait to revisit it and maybe find little things that I didn't like. But this story is so grounded and centered around Batman, like you said. And I think that you put it perfectly there. The ancillary pieces, obviously, we both love Dano. And we could go on and on about probably Dano for like an hour because he's incredible in this. It's not much of a surprise to you and I. We love Dano and we think he's incredible. So if this is people's introduction to Dano, I highly recommend going back and watching some of his films, especially like Prisoners and then his performance.
Going back and watching Prisoners, like he pulls a lot of his Prisoners performance into this. That kind of like unknowing, like
kind of clueless,
almost scared.
Clueless,
almost scared, clueless kind of person, but he's so confident at the same time.
Yeah, he was incredible in this. I think Colin Farrell was fine. I think he was more of a piece of the puzzle as the Penguin. I did like the little O'Day to the character a little bit there. And that's all I'll say about that. But I thought he's fine. Again, he's just a piece of the puzzle. I think another standout for me, I really like Jeffrey Wright as Gordon.
Yep. I
was a big fan of him. I thought he was really good. Any characters outside of Dano and Pattinson that kind of stood out to you?
I liked that John Turturro was in the movie. His Falcone was good, but he wasn't like a main piece of the puzzle. He was like, him and the Penguin were both border pieces that you can just put on at the beginning and then try to get to the center. And I liked Zoe Kravitz. Now her character, I think the movie could have gone without the character and it would have been just as fine. But I do think that Zoe Kravitz really like elevates that and makes it something to where it's those moments between Batman and Catwoman are like, they're sincere and you can like understand the like attraction between each of them and you get what is going on. And other than that, I can't think of any more characters.
Yeah. The bottom
it's really, it's really just like, there's like a core 7 to 10 and then everyone else is just kind of like there.
Circus was. I thought Alfred would be a little bit more prevalent, and he wasn't, which kind of surprised me. There was one scene between him and Pattinson that's really good. In the hospital, I thought that was a phenomenal scene there. That was a really good scene. I'm with you. Kravitz to me, I think that's where some part of the movie loses its way. Like it does. And it's nothing against what Kravitz did because I thought she was good in the role. And I just feel like that part of the story kind of felt out of place to the grand picture, but she's fine. Like I'm not like, it's not saying she's bad in the movie. I just didn't love But the scenes with her and Pattinson are great. Like they're great together. They are really great together. And I love the chemistry that they did have. It's even awkward. I liked it because again, Pattinson it doesn't know how to act around women. Like he's a recluse. So like even when she's again, he's got one mission in his mind. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like because even the Batmans that we see in the future, like the Bales, the Afflecks, they're confident. They have swagger. They go for the women. They're playboys. You know what I mean? This is Batman that's, you know, again, a recluse to sit in his house and he just kind of chill scenario. So it's really good. Technical aspect, this thing's a fucking masterpiece.
One more thing before we get off that I just want to mention is that this is, I think, one of the things that people have always said about Batman, and this is something that I wrote in my review. I think the line where he says, "I'm not a part of the shadows, I am the shadows." I do think that this is probably the most like frightening Batman, just in aspect of like how Matt Reeves like, and I guess this can go into the technical aspect, but how Matt Reeves like frames and portrays Batman. He is like, and he's not coming for us. He's coming for the people in the movie, but he is like almost a horror figure. He's almost like akin to any of like Michael Myers or anything like that. Like these figures that like when they start coming for you, it's over. There's nothing you can do about it.
He very much had I have nothing to lose, but everything to gain approach to everything. Every fight, every battle. He didn't care. He doesn't care if he dies in the grand scheme of things. And that's what's, I think, in my head, it's what's scary about him is, and when you fight somebody that has nothing to lose, like that's just air. You know what I'm saying? I thought it was incredible. I agree with you there. Yeah. It's incredible.
And then I guess going to the technical side, you know, Matt Reeves, the direction I thought was brilliant.
Yeah.
I thought the cinematography was brilliant. And then to kind of meld my thoughts together, and it's in the trailers, it's not a spoiler, the upside down shot in the car. I thought that was the one shot where like he's walking towards the car and it was so reminiscent of like Michael Myers. Like, and he's like, because he's not running after him. He's not like, he doesn't seem like he's like actively trying to kill him, but he's like, his presence is so imposing. And even though the person in the car might not be the best person, you're still like, oh my God, they're done. Like that's it for him. And so I think that's one of my favorite things about Pattinson in this role. And that's one of my favorite things about how they created this Batman.
Also, another thing I want to mention, the wordplay with the characters' names was also phenomenal. Like that was pretty cool. Like it's attention to detail that not a lot of people like to play to, because it plays within the riddles as well. Obviously, as we come to find out a lot of different moving pieces. But you're right. It's the score is absolutely breathtaking.
It's been listening to it all day.
Yeah, it's a beautiful score. The cinematography is gorgeous. There's several shots that are just like, holy shit, like it's just, they're gorgeous, and I loved every second of it. And kind of going back to Pattinson, there's one moment towards the end of the movie where he viciously beats the living tarnation out of a guy, and that's another scene where he's downright terrifying because they kind of have to pull him off. Hey bro, like calm down, dog, like calm down, man. But it was like, yeah, like, and the other thing I really like, the little kid in the movie, the little, I don't know, like there's just
the mayor's kid. Yeah. Yeah.
Like there's just a little pieces of puzzle that I really did enjoy. All right. So we're not going to go too deep, especially the spoilers, but we both agree it's damn near perfect when it comes to that. So obviously for the banana meter score, we do rank it on percentage. I'll make you give me a percentage, and I'm also going to make you give me your typical letter score and just your overall thoughts of the film there.
Okay. So my letter score is going to be an A-. I was hovering between an A- and an A. I think it gets close. It really gets close to being like a great movie. It's still a great movie, but it really gets close to being like one of those movies. Of course, with subsequent watches, I could go up. I mean, an A- is so close. I I loved it. I thought it was. I mean, it is like the Batman that it's the Batman that, like, as a non-Batman fan, I always kind of wanted to see, but had never seen. And so it kind of like I love it in that sense, but I'm also like, damn, like now I have to love Batman because of like what they did. I think I don't think there's anyone in Hollywood right now, and I know Ricky will disagree with me because he wasn't an Apes fan. I don't think there's anyone in Hollywood that can direct a blockbuster film quite as well as Matt Reeves. I think as a director, as a blockbuster comic book major movie director, I think he he gets it. I think he knows like how to I think he knows how to visualize every little detail and tell a compelling story that is just both like breathtaking to look at, to listen to hear, all of it. Like I think he knows how to put it all together. Like you said, the score just incredible. Michael Giacchino, he did the Spider-Man score, still my favorite score of last year. This will probably be one of my favorite scores of this year. It like he said, it's absolutely breathtaking. And it is the I mean the movie's aptly named. It is the Batman. It is the Batman movie. It's the definitive like if someone said, "Hey, I want to understand this character. I want to understand who Batman is." This is the movie that I will show them. This is the movie I'll tell them to watch. It's this movie. It's the Batman. Banana meter score. I'm going A-. I'm probably going a. Since it's so close to being an A, I'll probably go like a 90. I'll go a 92. You just unmuted and then muted yourself.
I don't know how I did that. I'm multitasking there. For me, I love when I love when I see a film and as the more I sit with it, the more I think about, the more I like. You know, even this conversation, I found things that I liked more and more about the movie than I did 30 minutes ago before we started this conversation. When I wrote my review, I found myself liking things more and more and more. And you're right. It's very, very close to a great film. It's close to that. It's not there. And to me, even upon rewatches, it won't get there. I was on the verge of a B+, A-. I'm on the mend there. You know what I mean? Like I'm very close. Again, which is a phenomenal score when it comes down to it. Like I'm at like an 88 to 90% range. You know what I mean? Like I guess again, I was at it. I talked to you about it last night. I'm at 4 stars. Like that's where I was. I'm probably closer to 4.5 now than I was before. But I do have, like I said, I do have issues with certain parts of it. I do. And that's what holds it back from being 5 stars or even close to being like that A+, or even an A for me. I think it holds it back from being an A for me. But I do think it's a movie that upon rewatch, there's going to be pieces that you pick up on that you didn't see the first time. I do think that he uses a lot of different things within the movie that contextually might not make sense, but later on you think about it, it's like even bringing up the wordplay. Like I thought about that as we were talking about it. The wordplay he does is great. I loved it. But overall, like I said, I'm at 88, 90%. I can't wait till we watch it because I really feel like that's where I'm at with it. It could be an A-, could be stay at a B+. It's there. But to me, I think that is the best Batman movie to date. It is. It's period. And that's coming from a guy that I love The Dark Knight Rises. I've been on record. I don't think The Dark Knight is as good as it was when I first watched it. I don't think it plays well on repeats. The Dark Knight Rises I do love, and that's probably was my favorite Batman movie prior to this. But it is the best Batman movie. It's technically a masterpiece. I felt things, you know what I mean? Like I compare it to, like I was talking to somebody earlier about Dune, right? I didn't feel things with Dune, but it was technically a masterpiece. I felt things in this movie that made Batman grounded and relatable. And that to me is that's all I can ask for in a type of movie like this. So I loved it. And I can't wait to rewatch it.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree. I think there's a couple moments, but there's one stretch of where Batman's beating up a goon, and you kind of like get this realization, and Batman gets this realization of like everything he's done and like the way he does things, and it's from there to like the next 15-ish minutes, I was just in chills. I was like, this is like this is it. Like I get it now. Like I understand. Um Again, like I said at the beginning of the pod, very much still a Batman movie, very much still a comic book movie. It's not like this isn't Logan. This isn't that upper echelon of comic book movies that's like, I guess there's what do they say? Like elevated horror, I guess, which I know is like a dirty word to some people. This isn't elevated comic book movie. This isn't like that upper echelon of masterpiece level filmmaking and comic book storytelling. It's not that. And it doesn't have to be that. It doesn't have to be, it doesn't have to be that second level of like pure art house indie piece. But it still is really good in what it is.
And I'm interested to see what he does with a certain character if they do go that route.
Yep, I agree. I think it definitely has the issue of having like 7 different endings.
Oh my God. I forgot to mention that it does have like, yeah.
Yeah,
please
it
stop.
Definitely does the like, oh, you close the storyline, let's go close another. And that's another thing. Like that's another thing that like really reminded me this was a comic book movie, because you have to make such a big world around the character. You have to close up so much stuff, or the next time you go out and do something, you can't you've got this storyline that's going to stay open. So you have to keep closing different things, and then right at the end it's like you have to throw it all together and be like, okay, in this and I do think that was one of the biggest issues with the ending. It's not necessarily an issue, it just like it was one of those things that couldn't make this movie on the level of like Logan, because it didn't have. And granted, Logan's a bad example because like of course like it was a send-off for the characters, so like, of course it's going to have an ending. But for this movie, it had all of those endings added in. And I think that's like the one thing that like really brought it back to like, this is no matter what happens, this is very much a comic book movie.
Yeah, because even the ending was nice. Like the ride off to the sunset was a beautiful shot. And it was like, maybe it would have ended there. It'd have been all right. Because there could have been like 1 or 2 scenes that even if you could have thrown that into the post-credit world, I think it would have been perfectly fine. You know what I mean? Yeah, it just kind of meandered a little bit. It reminded me of The Dark Knight Rises. That's one of my bigger issues with The Dark Knight Rises. It closes 95 things in the last 30 seconds of the movie, which is really annoying. And a lot of movies do that. And you're right. Comic book movies are like the king of that. You know what I mean? Oh, God. But yeah. So with that being said, go see The Batman. Go see it 50 times.
See it. Don't be an asshole to the employees, please. This is my
Don't be an asshole to the employees, and don't be an asshole on social media and try to spoil anything that happens in the movie. Like,
exactly. Don't
be that person. But you're right. Don't ever be an asshole to your employees at the movie theater, and pick up your trash. Please do that. But with that being said, follow my good friend over here, Jacob Tberry57 on Twitter. Follow myself at @RickyViller_. Go to the Music City Drive-In for all your latest in everything. We cover everything. We cover it all now. But make sure to check out the other shows on the Drive-In Podcast Network. We'll both have written reviews up of the film as well in the very near future. So, actually, while you're listening to this, we'll have written reviews up already. But without me rambling, go see The Batman, guys, and tell us your thoughts whenever you do see it.